Hey, how's it going, everybody? Pragmatic Addict here. I'm joined by my good friend Jacob Johnson. So we are obviously back with episode 6 of Mike Judge's Beavis and Butthead. So there's a little bit more of enthusiasm around this episode this time around. So really quickly before we do start, I know, where's the AC/DC and the Metallica shirts? They're coming, guys. We're gonna be starting doing that next episode, so get ready for that. But this episode, I'm not gonna spoil anything because obviously there are 2 episodes in this. But one of these episodes, it's the best since it started. So without further ado, guys, let's go. Let's just get right into this. So in the first episode of this episode, we actually see an episode titled Virtual Stupidity. So in this episode, we actually see Beavis and Butthead discovering VR. They're at their local mall, and there's a guy at one of those kiosks. He's actually, promoting VR. They overhear him talking to a customer, how he's saying, well, you're actually going to be in the video game. And one thing about this kiosk is that he's actually selling just a bunch of ordinary sunglasses, too. And so when they hear this, Butthead's like, whoa, Beavis, we can go inside of a video game if we put these on. So basically, they put on ordinary sunglasses, mistaking it that they are in virtual reality. So they're interacting in their own local mall, in their own reality, mistaking it for virtual reality.
I'm going to be completely honest. They didn't need the virtual reality to be idiots, but they sure showed us. They went a whole new level of stupid in this episode.
Also, I'm going to say this before we actually talk about the episode. During the commentary part of this episode, there's a little jingle that Beavis sings, and I just look at Jacob, I'm like, we gotta learn this. I've never heard it before. I don't know if this is a thing. If it is an original thing, holy fuck. I had to take time to address that. The commentary of this part, Beavis is singing this jingle, and I'm just like, bro, what are you? But yes, going forward, so Beavis and Butthead are wearing just ordinary sunglasses, thinking that they are virtual reality goggles. Now, I will say this, for a modern-day revival of Beavis and Butthead, idea-wise, this was an absolute necessity. Again, like a lot of the other ideas in the episodes, that, even if they don't fully land, I will say this, as an idea, Beavis and Butthead discovering VR, putting regular sunglasses on, interacting in their ordinary, original, regular world, mistaking it for another reality. We needed to do this. We needed to see this. And I will say, we see them interacting with ordinary people, mistaking them for NPCs. We see them, so you know how, like, in the mall, the directories, especially if they have, like, multiple floors, it'll say, level 2. Well, they see that, and then they're thinking, wow, we're on level 2 of the game. I bet we've gotten some superpowers. So we actually go forward from this, seeing them actually in the outside world now, thinking that they can stop cars and everything.
How they think they have multiple lives and they try to kill themselves.
Yeah.
Beavis gets hit by a freaking car because Butthead just pushes him, and I'm like...
Yeah, I want to address, like, something that threw us both off is how far this episode went. So obviously, yes, they get to a part in this episode where they're like, well, we're on level 2 now, mistaking the floor directory floor 2 for level 2 in the game. And they're like, well, we probably got superpowers. So, yeah, Butthead's doing shit where, like, he's throwing Beavis into fucking cars. Beavis gets his shit wrecked, and Butthead's like, well, you didn't die. You're stronger now. And so, what I will say, which this is going to be kind of a spoiler, but just bear with me. So, how this episode kind of, concludes is that, obviously, yeah, they get their shit wrecked in this point. They're at the hospital, and the guy that actually hit them with the car comes in, and he's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And Beavis and Butthead still thinking that they're in the games. They see, like, the monitors next to him in the hospital bed, and they're like, whoa, we must be in the next level. We have spears now. And then, obviously, this guy's just trying to apologize. Butthead's like, that's the guy that hit us with the car. Mistaking him for an enemy, so they're like, we need to kill him. So the episode pretty much wraps up with them just killing off this guy, and then we hear in passing, let's kill the doctors too.
I never laughed in a video before, but boy, this episode.
You're red as shit. Now, what I will say is that what I've kind of come to accept, especially today, we went into this episode, I was like, okay, I've accepted that we're in 2022, this ain't the 90s. The shock value as far as the limitations are going to be much different than what, the creative freedom they had in the 90s. So I went into this episode and I was thinking, alright, this is a banging idea. Let's just go in there with a grain of salt. And I will say, the shock factor here, not just for this revival series, but just in general, it's demented as shit. They go to some areas where I'm just like, okay, they're doing it. They're going there. They're going there. So I will say that, especially compared to the past few episodes, the freedom, the creative kind of, freedom in this episode, it is a little bit of a step up. But obviously there are some things some nitpicks that I do have with this episode, which is for example, obviously, again, the idea for this episode, yeah, we needed it. But in saying that there are things in this episode which, that is kind of like a mixed bag for me, because it's on one hand, I do feel like, yes, they absolutely do need to be addressed in order to really make sense and to really work. But in saying that, kind of counteracts with the fact that the ways that they address these things, I'm just as a fan of Beavis and Butthead, grown, to know their kind of characters, I'm just Butthead would not know what the fuck that is. So for example, there's this one part in this episode where Beavis is well, who are those guys? And Butthead's I think those are the NPCs or something, the characters they see in video games just doing nothing, just there. And I'm okay, I get it. Yes, you needed to address that, especially with where you're about to go. That makes sense, because otherwise you'd just be why are they beating up these random people? I get it. But at the same time, I'm Butthead doesn't know what the fucking NPC is. It's Butthead. Come on, Butthead, does he even play video games? So again, there are things that I think are, a little bit on the nose, a little bit that just didn't work with, they worked on one hand, again, explaining this. But I think that just, for the characters, that also kind of counteracts with that, and it doesn't really, flow well with me. But I will say this, for today's time, the episode did still do enough, and not only enough, but as well as just how it, it concluded, I think that it was just absurd in its own fucking right. Now, this next episode. Before I saw this episode, I read the synopsis, which literally reads, Beavis and Butthead get locked out of their house and destroy it trying to get back in. Which is absolutely just, you give me that episode right now. You give me that episode right now. Which, again, going into this, I did kind of have the grain of salt, especially from the past few episodes, but seeing this, recent episode, The Virtual Stupidity, I was alright, well, let's hold on now. The first 3 episodes, they went there. This episode, it was kind of, the first episode of this one, it was kind of, it was alright. It was alright compared to the past few. Let's just go forward with this. Again, idea-wise, let's go. This is needed. How have we not seen this yet? And I gotta say, literally instantly, Beavis's dialogue and his, charming stupidity, I gotta say, Beavis was the standout in this episode. And throughout the episode, just seeing these two, just kind of spiral and seeing their nerves and tolerances just, collapse as they're trying to get back into this house. Which, yes, I will say, throughout the entire episode, Beavis was just a standout. With also saying that, though, how classical this episode felt. This episode was so hype. It is one of the best episodes we've gotten so far throughout the entire revival. And not only that, but since it started. This episode, I will go as far as to say that it goes all out. That not only fans will hope for and expect, but it even exceeds that with its climax, which I will fucking talk about. But I will go as far as to say that this episode goes all out as far as, this revival has since the first episodes. There are things from, them calling the back door the butt of the house, because the term back door. There is this one scene where they break a window and they're trying to get in and there's glass everywhere, and something happens down there to them, which I will say our neighbors might be really concerned because of how loud we got during that. And there is a, callback where we do see the return of Anderson, where obviously he's calling Beavis and Bud different names like he has since, the beginning, where he's mistaking them as just these nice boys next door, but yet there's these other two boys that sound very similar to them name-wise that are obviously the culprits where he just doesn't realize it. We see that in this episode very, very, very up there, where they see his truck, right? And they're like, he has like a little like hook on the back of it. And they're like, well, what if we attach this to the door and it pulls it off? But we have to get Anderson to drive his truck. So they go to Anderson and they're like, yeah, someone marked your car. Someone keyed your car. And so he gets in the truck. And basically, he does drive off. But what I will say is that this concludes. And again, not only how you would hope for or expect, but it exceeds that. Or I will say, this episode just ended with me just hooting and hollering. As a fan, this brought it back. This made my morning. This is one of the best episodes that we've gotten yet in the Survival series. And I would say that it's the third favorite of mine so far on the graph of the episodes.
I thought this was the most funniest episode all season so
really?
far.
It's your favorite one?
It's my favorite.
It's in my top 3.
It's above the B episode.
Really? So I think that like my favorite episodes. I want to say that the first, like my absolute favorite episode. I can't remember if it's Escape Room or if it's the other one that was with that. I'd have to look back at the graph, but Beekeepers was obviously my second favorite, I believe. This one is right underneath, which obviously those first 2 episodes I thought were I thought they were perfect. I thought they were perfect. And obviously this one being right below it. I mean, with this plot, you gotta see this episode. If you have kind of felt a little bit, like the episode, like the season has kind of like, turned down a little bit, and it's kind of getting weaker, this for sure is every Beavis and Butthead fan out there. So guys, that is going to do it for this episode. Yes, obviously the second half of this episode was just great. It was fantastic. The first episode, I do think that it's alright. I think the idea is great, and I think that for what they did, especially with this time and with the concept, they did fine with. There are some stuff that did kind of like just flow a little bit weird and didn't feel quite natural, but I still think that they worked the best that they could have with it. So yes, guys, that is going to do it for episode 6 review of Mike Judge's Beavis and Butthead on Paramount+. Let us know what you guys thought about the video down below as well as these episodes. I would love to talk with you guys about it. And yes, Metallica and AC/DC shirts, we'll get there. We'll get there. But yes, guys, I hope you guys are all having a fantastic morning, a fantastic day. We will see you guys, obviously, next week in episode 7. I will also be reviewing Honk for Jesus Save Your Soul within the next day or 2, so look forward to that. But yes, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you again, and I hope you guys are having a great day. Take care, guys.